Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Learning Sound and Synthesis Spotlight Series interview. I am here today with Michael Linnen. Welcome, Michael. Happy to have you here.
Nice to be here.
I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have today because today is all about slowing down. We're going to be talking about how slowing down, focusing on fundamentals, and really kind of just letting go of the need to constantly be accelerating and doing more helped Michael to basically unlock a whole new creative chapter in his music making. He's already doing so much. We're going to get to hear a lot about that. And I feel like this is such an important conversation because so often as musicians and creative people, I'm sure folks watching can relate to this. We are constantly focused on the next thing, right? Like the next big step. How can I do more? How can I be more productive? And in reality, more often than not, constantly trying to speed up can actually hold us back from doing our best work, right? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Whether what you're doing is learning modular synths or making music in any way, this can have a really big impact. So I'm so excited to get into it. We're going to hear about Michael's story, learn more about his music making and his creative practice in general. So with that, let's get started. First of all, welcome to everyone who's watching live. Go ahead and leave a comment in the chat. Just let us know you're tuning in. It's always nice to know who's here. If you're watching the replay, comment replay so that we can see you after the fact. And let's pass over to Michael. Can you start us off just with a little intro to who you are and what kind of music you make?
Sure. I think slow is the word of the day here. I definitely make slow, strange music. I have been doing music all my life, and I'm old. So since about the turn of the century, a little before that, actually, a lot before that, I kind of started out, with tape 4 tracks and experimenting uh, with the lo-fi pedals we had back in the 20th century, and combining those things, and have been in some kind of indie rock bands, and scored a couple of movies for David Gordon Green. I did 3 movies for him, and then I did another one. And we were back then we were like literally recording to half-inch tape, and there was no automation or computers or anything like that. And so that's kind of my origin story. And then I think I had spent the last few years frustrated with myself that I wasn't making enough music or making music in the quote unquote right way, and looked to modular synthesis as sort of a way to unlock a new approach, and then started hitting my head against the modular learning curve, and then looked to the LSS course to kind of open that door for me. And now here we are.
Yeah. So like I said, you do a lot. That was a very, I'm sure there's even things that got left out, but it's amazing to hear
Yep. Yep.
how, yeah, how wide ranging your creative practice is. So I'm curious to know a little bit about your entry point into the world of modular synth. You talked a little bit about that, but
Yep.
Creatively, what was going on, or I don't know if you remember that. Is there a specific reason why you were like, this is something I want to get into? Really intrigued.
Yeah. I was studiously avoiding it because I knew that my brain would be caught in it like a rat trap, and I would be sucked in to the vortex. And I got an O coast just because I wanted to kind of play around with it. And I just fell in love with sort of the timbres that I was getting out of it. And I was just, I didn't know what any of the patching really did. I figured out how to hook up a little MIDI keyboard to it. And I was kind of playing it like you would a synthesizer. And I was also a big Monome person. I had been messing with my Norns and my grid for a little while, and I just loved it. And I knew that modular could unlock that in ways that I hadn't begun to conceive of. But ultimately, what did it was the chip shortage and the pandemic. I was stuck at home trying to figure out how to make music by myself, and I was hearing from my weirdo friends that they couldn't get their hands on a lot of stuff because the chip shortage, it was sold out, and suddenly Make Noise's tape and microsound machine appeared before me, and it had the words "available, one left," and I was like, well, crap. And then I went down the vortex, and that's kind of how it started. And I violated every one of the prime directives that you shouldn't get too much at once. And I found on Reverb somebody was selling the Minome modules that I knew I needed to get to pair with my Norns, and I knew how rare they were, and so I ponied up for those. And so then I was faced with basically a brick wall of a learning curve, trying to figure out these wonderful things. And yeah, that's kind of how the modular stuff came about.
I love that's really, I didn't know that part of your story.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. I want to just say a hello to Taco Regent, who is joining us live. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Okay, so Michael, you mentioned that before we jumped on the live stream that when you were coming into the learning sound synthesis class, and I guess maybe into modular in general, you had been on a little bit of a break, a music making break, and that you were feeling kind of like behind in where you wanted to be, or kind of what you thought you'd be doing. Can you talk a little bit more about
Sure.
that? And because I think that that's a feeling that is pretty maybe more universal than people might expect.
Totally.
This feeling of like being behind, not being where you thought you'd be, or maybe not being where other people are.
So I'm learning. That's been one of the most unexpected things about the LSS classes. I think is being exposed to the community and the people that are exploring and are stuck in maybe similar ways or different ways than you are, and sort of getting I don't know, that sense of belonging to a community of weirdo music explorers, that there's no such thing as actually being stuck or going too fast or focusing on the most esoteric, idiosyncratic thing you can think of. That's like where the fun is. And so I think I signed up for LSS because I thought I needed to like break this impasse that I had, and that I was, I was doing what everyone, does. I was watching all the YouTube videos and trying to pick things up and kind of just bounce all over the place. And so when I signed up for LSS, I thought, well, this is going to teach me how to master modular synthesis, and I'll just take this course, and a couple months from now, I'll be like a modular genius / expert, and I'll just be doing whatever I want all the time. And well, that's almost impossible. I think I know now, and I think you know that very well. And I can't even conceive of. Let me put this a different way. I think one of the things that unlocked for me was this realization that I had entered sort of an approach to making music that was going to like last me the rest of my life, almost like being a jazz pianist or something. Like there's no way to master it, and there's no end to the different pathways you can explore. And ultimately that was the thing, is that you chase something down an alleyway, and then you just explore that alleyway, and that's where all the fun stuff is. And I think I had this sense that I was behind because I had, like I said, I've been making music all my life. I toured in bands. I put out records. I made music for movies, and so I was like really frustrated with myself that I was like not doing enough. And so I think I just switched into more of a beginner's mind as I started the LSS course, and my curiosity kind of opened some doors to me that I had kind of shut on myself in a way. and led me to this place where I was just having a fun exploring, and that was the key for me.
That's
Did I
so
answer your
great.
question? I hope I did.
You did. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's really interesting just to hear your perspective on it because this, I feel like when we focus so much on, feeling behind, not moving fast enough, I'm not where I should be, we can miss some of those, you know, distractions, those tangents, those detours. And in the world of modular synthesis, and I think in music and creativity in general, but definitely in the world of modular synthesis, sometimes those little detours that feel like distractions are exactly what you need, right? Like sometimes they are the thing that will spark inspiration for your next album, or the technique you never even knew existed so you didn't have a name for it, but oh my god, now that you do, all the pieces are falling together. But there's something about, when you're so laser focused on hitting the next milestone, you can miss those, right? You can close yourself off to them and be like, I can't go down that rabbit hole. No, I have to focus. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
maybe that's exactly where you needed to go. So I think that's really a good reminder, um, just to have that kind of curiosity. So I would love to talk more about this beginner's mind. This is one of my favorite things ever. um, and and then just generally this idea of kind of slowing down. How did that manifest for you in the class? Like, at what point did you realize that that's something that was helpful for you? Can you just talk a little bit more about what that experience was like?
Sure. I think when we part of it is the structure of the course, right? Starting out with some of, uh, like I kind of I kind of came into the class like knowing what music concrete is or whatever, and yada yada yada. But then doing a deep dive on some of like the explorers and the pioneers from further back than I thought electronic music making occurred, just made me realize how gargantuan this like map was that I had available to explore, and how many different approaches there would be. And I think you and your team were so encouraging of just reminding us that we were not behind and that we should take it at our own pace. And I think I had started the class just like blasting through things, just like because I've got to get to that expertise status so that I can do all the things. And I think it took me maybe a few weeks to realize. Uh, that I was kind of missing stuff by going through it so fast to get to the next stop, that I wasn't fully like appreciating and exploring, what was in front of me. And I kind of implemented a hard stop on myself. And to be honest, I have not finished the course yet. And I have gotten far enough in the course to be dangerous, and to have a certain level of comfort with uh, accidentally discovering things and knowing how I got there and how to get back there, or by deciding I want to do a thing and knowing sort of what to research and study so that I can approach a specific I don't know, solution to something I'm
Yeah.
trying to do. But I think ultimately it was just it was kind of like what we just talked about, right? It was not the destination; it was the journey. And at some point, I realized, I'm rushing to the airport and I'm missing how beautiful the leaves are outside on the trees, and I need to kind of just slow down and pay attention. And so I'm absolutely going to finish the course. I'm just not going to rush through it, and I feel like that's one of the best things
Yeah.
about it is that it's there for me. And if I ever do get to this place where uh, I'm like, well, I know this route, I know this journey, I know this destination, then I'm guessing there's another door that I can open there and start to explore some kind of
Yeah.
uncharted territory. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, the this class, Learning Sound and Synthesis, is really intended to be like something that you take with you for years, you know, something that you go through, you get enough inspiration, enough technical knowledge to like make hopefully you get so inspired that you're like, I've got to make something right now. That's kind of the dream, the goal. You go and you do that. You feel full, and then you're like, okay, now I'm hungry again for something new, a next step, a new technique. Like I want to level up to the next, you know, the next level of this video game
Right.
or whatever. I'm ready for the next boss, and then you go in and you kind of take it another few steps and rinse and repeat. So I'm really happy to hear that that's the experience you've been having. Um, what I'd love to do now is maybe zoom out a little, like away from learning sound and synthesis and into your creative practice in general. Uh, I've gotten the sense from you that this idea of slowing down and this beginner's mind approach is something that you really value in your creative work in general. Can you talk about how it's been helpful for you, or maybe offer
Sure.
some insight to people who are watching who might be feeling the urgency of like, I need to
Yeah.
do all the things all the time right now?
Yeah. There's, I think, a few ways I could tackle this. I think I'll hit back to what I just said. Like, I haven't finished the LSS course, and that's because I'm making more music and I'm finishing more music and I'm preparing to kind of throw it out in the world and do all those things. And that was kind of, I mean, for me, the goal is just to make this whatever weird stuff that's in my head that like I need to make that makes me feel sane and safe and happy. And so the frustration of not being an expert and not knowing how to start or how to finish or whatever has been completely is gone. It's evaporated. And the problem I have now is really that I'm like making too much music, which is not really a problem, obviously. So I'm really focused on kind of putting some structure in to my process so that I'm not just blasting past all these things that are happening. And um, so it's been the key to unlocking the whole thing to me. Really, is to slow down and be curious about whatever is happening, you know, in the moment musically, and kind of staying with it and letting it be what it is, not feeling like this need uh, to perfect everything and to have
Mhm.
it like to. It's kind of the same symptom of a different disease, like rushing to the destination and rushing to the finish line. Like it can kind of prevent you from uh, noticing what's there right in front of you. And so part of why I'm making a lot more music right now is that I'm not, you know, I'm creating something, and then I'm not trying to spend endless iterations perfecting it, which is probably an impossibility anyways. I'm accepting it as it is, and I'm then adding to it, and then I'm feeling like much more satisfied with the music that's coming out of all my weird little boxes over here.
It's really interesting what you're saying to me, because it's like you're almost saying that you're slowing down your desire to immediately edit and refine. And what that's actually doing is allowing you to make more music faster, because you're not getting stuck
It's
in the
crazy.
like, isn't that funny? It's like a backward,
It's
or it's
crazy.
not backwards, it's just both. It's like you're slowing
Yeah.
yourself down. Your tendency, and I think many people, I can relate to this, is you make something and you immediately go, okay, how could this be better? What's wrong with this? Like you're quick to find the flaws. And what you're doing, what you're describing to me, is that you are interrupting that and slowing down and saying, let's just sit with this for a minute. And then you're like realizing, now that you have that space and you're actually hearing it for all that it is and could be, you're like, well, you know what? This is maybe beautiful the way it is, maybe with like one little thing added or one little thing taken away. But without slowing down to create that space to hear it, again, it's like missing all of the detours that might actually be the right path to take. So you're slowing
Yeah.
down, which is helping you speed up. That it sounds totally backwards, but it makes a lot of sense.
It yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even the velocity, right? It's not even the speed. It's that I'm noticing what's good about what's there, right? As opposed to being like, well, this is never going to be good unless I edit the hell out of it and turn it
Right.
into something that it's not supposed to be in the first place. And so uh, I think there's a whole lot there that you can unpack. I think some of it, I would also say, goes back to the community that I have encountered at LSS, and just seeing the diversity of approaches to music, and the kinds of different music that people make. You and your practice has been super inspiring, honestly. Like, just being fearlessly yourself has made me feel like, oh yeah, that's okay. I can just be myself and do my thing. And so there's a lot to this, and it starts with kind of that beginner's mind and that kind of
Yeah.
like Zen approach to things. But uh, once I kind of cracked that, it's like there's this whole, new world that I'm inhabiting that is pretty fun.
I love this. I'm so excited that we got into this conversation. My mind is a little bit blown right now by this whole like slowing down, speeding up
Yeah.
thing. And I'm realizing, the space that we can create by just taking an extra breath, taking an extra moment, that space can allow clarity to come through. It might sound a little corny, but that space that we can create allows our own voice to come through, as opposed to, should I do this? What's correct? Do they want this? Is this good? Blah, 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 like a million thoughts that are all coming from the outside. When you pause, you can allow that one next step to come from your internal creative wisdom, which all of you have. Everyone listening to this now and in the future, we all have so much of that within us, but it's so hard to tap into when we're moving at a lightning speed, right? It's really interesting. So, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now? I don't mean to just subject change on you all of
Sure.
a
Oh
sudden,
yeah.
but
It's all good.
I want to share some of your music with people who are watching. Um, I'm going to start by putting your Bandcamp link in the chat. And can you tell us a little bit about what's there now and maybe what's coming, what's in the works?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. What's up right now is a little EP I made called Daylight Saving. It's part of a pair. Its counterpart's going to come out in early November here, also on Bandcamp and all the streams. So it is. This is some stuff I made when I guess first fell under the spell of Manome Norns, and I was sort of conceptually getting into the space that I'm in now, where I was sort of trying to create these little Rube Goldberg machines that it was the pandemic, and I'm used to making music with other people, and I was very curious about how electronic music is made, coming from guitar and drums and tape kind of background. And suddenly I'm alone, and I'm very curious about how this stuff is made. And uh, long story short, I sort of tried to kind of create these little Rube Goldberg machines around my studio that I could kind of improvise with. And so it's kind of generative, not quite. It's improvised, and like maybe like that there's a practice take, and then I just recorded it. So kind of what we were talking about, where I just went really fast and I just let myself kind of be in the moment, and I didn't give myself any room to edit,
Mhm.
other than just a little bit of EQ after it was recorded, and then I sent it off, and I had it mastered by the amazing Taylor Dupree, and he found. Uh, uh, he helped me kind of wake up some of the little micro sounds and noises
Mm.
that were inherent to my kind of janky recording process, which I'm a fan of.
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like where I'm headed. Is trying to keep it that simple and make some kind of, I don't know, semi-generative, semi-improvised music, but moving it to to modular, where I can kind of devise a little bit more uh, complicated systems with the modular, and so
Mhm.
I'm loving sequencing things with Norns and Ansible, and then improvising along with that. And so I'm it's we're back to that place where I can't wait to get to the destination because I really want to hear that music, but I'm trying to like allow myself to kind of just be where I'm at and not rush. And so yeah,
It
I'm
will
excited.
come. Yeah, it will come for sure. Here's an interesting question from someone who is tuning in. And I think this is particularly relevant just because you are, sharing this music. You just released this EP and you're sharing more music that's stuff that, you made prior a little while ago. And you're
Yeah,
also working on new music. And the question is there's a couple parts to this. I'm just going to pull it up on the screen. But basically, how does your new music sit between your older work? If it does, if this is something you think about, how do you perceive your old work
yeah,
now? And do you refresh your old work with new modular influences now that you know more about it? I mean, it's a really interesting question. Um, as as we move forward and we learn new skills and we make new kinds of music, we move into new creative chapters. Um, how do you
yeah,
perceive your old music? Do you think about that? What's that relationship like for you?
yeah. Well, I think the old music, like the band stuff and the songwriting kind of stuff, definitely informs my sense of uh, how you kind of make a satisfying, melody or something like that. How you resolve
Sure.
something. But I think what I, there was, this is maybe a pretentious quote to invoke, so forgive me. But I think Kevin Shields was, when he was talking about My Bloody Valentine and like the long pause between their records, he was describing he was frustrated with making baby music, in the sense that like just a traditional kind of like rock record was had kind of been done a million times. And so I think at some point, I think when I was doing the music for the movies, I kind of shifted into this more experimental recording mindset and really got into the notion of using the studio as an instrument. And I think even so, George Washington was the first movie that I scored, and the director is now kind of a big shot, but at the time he was just a student, and we were doing this on the equipment I had lying around my house. We recorded it in my bedroom, and we were doing things like recording loops on a DoD delay pedal that had a 4 second looping pattern, and we would stripe the 8 tracks of my half-inch tape machine with different notes of a chord, and then we would ride the faders on the mixing board to kind of make these to make movement and make the melody progress or whatever. And it was like super lo-fi, and I thought about that the other night. My little brother reminded me of this, that we had done that, and he likes that song a lot. And I think that's kind of the similar approach that I have now, where I'm kind of I'm really interested in texture and melody and how that all fits together. And I think uh, it's weird how so much has changed in the tools that I have at my disposal now, and yet nothing has changed with the music that comes out. I shared something with a friend over the summer that I made music with a long time ago, and he's like, this is so weird because it sounds just like you, but it sounds completely different. And so
Right.
I think it's just opening new doors, and we all kind of form our patterns of what we want to
Yeah.
make, how it comes out, and yeah,
I love that though. I can relate to that as well. It's you have new techniques, new instruments, entirely new workflows maybe. But there's something really amazing about coming back to maybe where it could be your roots, it could be the whatever the basics is for you, whatever the essence is for you of like why you do this, what kind of sounds you love, what kind of interactions you love. And usually you can find those no matter what you're working with. whether it's a modular synth or a computer or an acoustic instrument or, whatever it is, there's usually something about the interaction or the approach to sound that is pretty universal among all of these things. I think it's really interesting to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, I think my buddy, and I graduated high school in like 1988 to date myself, and it was that. But that was the year when my buddy Paul turned me on to Arvo Part's Tabula Rasa record, and I think I probably have been trying to figure out how to do that since that moment in time. And not that I'm even close to doing that, but that sort of minimal kind of like. I like the rules that Mr. Part invokes with his music, and I kind of like to create little rules for myself, whether I'm doing weird stuff on a 4-track or I'm doing stuff in modular, and somehow it kind of always brings me back to a similar place. That's not at all like I think I've probably have told people the story about how obsessed I was with kind of making something like Arvo Part or something like the great Talk Laughing Stock record, and every time I try it comes out sounding nothing like their stuff. It sounds like me, and doesn't even sound like I'm trying to do what they've done. And so I think the commonality between those two is there was a system in place when they made that music, and I find myself gravitating towards sort of setting up systems that I can play around in.
Yeah.
And modular is great for that, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you, Taco, for that question. That led to a really interesting conversation, so I appreciate it.
Dorky. Sorry.
No, it's wonderful. That's why we're here. Come on, let's be real. If this conversation and topic in general is resonating with you, I would love to just take a brief moment to invite folks to check out the Learning Sound and Synthesis class and waitlist. For those of you who aren't familiar with what Learning Sound and Synthesis is, it is my online modular synthesis and sound design class that teaches you everything that you need to know in order to make music with modular synths and design your own sounds completely from scratch. And as you have likely gathered from this interview, Learning Sound and Synthesis is not just a technical how to like plug this in here, plug this in there kind of class. We do absolutely cover all of the technical foundations, as well as some much more advanced techniques and concepts. But I really designed Learning Sound and Synthesis to be a comprehensive program about making music with electronic instruments and modular synths. So we talk about things like this, about, adopting a beginner's mindset and slowing down and finding your creative inspiration and turning your modular synth sounds into music. Like what to do when you find a beautiful sound. What are the next steps? How do you build that patch out and actually turn your ideas into finished pieces of music, and a lot more along that general topic of just building your creative practice with modular synths. So if this resonates with you and you're curious to learn more, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the Learning Sound Synthesis waitlist in the chat. I'm also just going to put it up on the screen for those of you who can't see the chat. Here it is. The next round of LSS opens up in early 2024. So the best thing to do now, if you're curious, would just be to put your email on there, and that way you will be the first notified when the doors open back up. If you have questions about the class, you want to talk to me about where you're at in your journey and if it's the right fit for you, my DMs are open. So send me a message anytime. I'd love to hear about what you're doing, where you're at with things, what your goals are, and I can help to assess whether LSS would be the right next step for you. And with that said, I want to go back over to Michael and just see what's on your mind as a kind of final thought, if you have any. I know I don't want to throw you a curveball at the last minute, but is there anything else you want to say to the folks watching?
There's a few things, but I guess I'll just.
You can say a few things.
I'll just say
whatever's on your mind.
I really, I mean, I want to say thank you to you and your team for kind of helping me get back to where I was going and doing it in maybe a different way than I expected. Right. I am definitely. I think I was in. I want to say did I guess it was earlier this year, whatever the winter cohort. Time is a blur to me sometimes. And I'm, so I'm what about 6 months out from having started that class, 8 months out, 10 months out, something like that. And it was not at all what I expected. And, I definitely am getting my money's worth in terms of my modular skills advancing, but I didn't expect it to be such a game changer in terms of just being around this community of curious explorers of weird music, and that has been really inspiring to me. So thank you to you and your wonderful team who are equally inspiring and supportive. And then I think the last thing I'll say is something that you have reminded me and my various cohorts of students many times is embrace imperfect action. It's supposed to be fun. Have fun making music, and like you don't need a class to tell you that, but sometimes you do need a class to reinforce it to the point where you can hear it.
Yes, I love that so much. Embrace imperfect action, which just means, prioritize taking action over perfection. That's really what the essence of that is. Take a next step. It doesn't need to be the next perfect step. It probably won't be. But the point is, any step forward, whether it's finishing that track that you've been like mulling over for months or years, or signing up for that open mic that passes by every month that you just kind of go, oh, maybe next time, whatever it is, just taking that next step and learning from it. And like you said, Michael, earlier on in our conversation, treating all of this like it's a journey, right? It's not about the milestone of mastering modular. There's no point at which we check off, done it. I have now done my life as a musician. I personally hope I never get to that point, that I'm constantly taking detours, constantly going down new rabbit holes, right? And really treating it all as a journey. So embrace imperfect action. What a perfect place for us to wrap up. It's a good reminder. Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate all of your thoughts. Once again, let me just put this Bandcamp link back up on the screen for people. Go check out Michael's music, subscribe to his Bandcamp page. There's going to be more coming. It's beautiful music. And thank you everyone who tuned in live for listening. And I know there's some learning sound and synthesis people watching us right now. I just want to say thank you for being part of this community. You are all what make it so special and so vibrant. And that, of course, includes you, Michael, as well. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you on the next live stream. Take care. Bye for now, everyone.